by 2030, there will be 315 different EV models on the market, which is a 12x model growth over the decade just for EVs.
Welcome into another episode of Facts Not Feelings. I am your host, Brooke Furniss. As EVs continue their rapid ascent, we're exploring the many facets of retail advertising that honestly are evolving in response to all the EV buzz. Here to dive deep into the nuances is the one and only Madi Morgan, client partner at Polk Automotive Solutions by S&P. And I have said that so many times. I'm like, that is a mouthful of a title there and your company name, but we got through it, Madi, just barely. So Madi, I am so happy to have you in today and to be speaking with you and talking with you and learning from you today.
Thanks, Brooke. Super excited to be here. The automotive industry as a whole, I think we're in a really unique place right now with the rise of EVs. There's a lot to be said on what this really means for retail advertisers and as we continue to see this progression. So thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. And to that point, as I was getting the notes already for this show, I go, we might ruffle a few feathers with, because you hear EV and you have such polar mindsets on it. Or it's either I mother effing hate it or hey, I love it, but there's not a ton of in between. And so I'm excited to get into this, just kind of like dive into some of the statistics of it, the numbers of it, and where you all are going with it. Which so really, really excited for this. And it should be we should have a fun response on this, I'm sure, from the audience, to say the least. So let's just jump right into this and start with analytics. Obviously, the name shows facts and not feelings. So we're going to jump right into the number portion of it. How should, I'll say we evolve to really understand how EV owners are, then their shopping behaviors?
Yeah. So, right now we're seeing EV owner shopping behaviors are vastly different from what we're used to seeing with traditional ICE or gasoline vehicles. For example, EVs right now are mainly an additive purchase. So that really means that these shoppers are not disposing of their current vehicle when they go to purchase an EV. So right now, quick stat, 6 to 7 out of every 10 EV purchases are joining another vehicle in a household's garage. And then due to these differences in shopping behaviors between ICE and EV shoppers, just how the retail space measures analytics and tracks ROI will really have to evolve to accommodate these differences and gain a more robust view of the path to purchase for this new genre of buyers. So they're going to have to change.
We say have to, but we all know those dealerships out there like, I refuse to do this. I don't want to do it. Those are the same ones that, thought that Blockbuster was going to live forever. And then Blockbuster did not live forever. So you have a choice. Netflix. And I actually remember when they actually still had CDs. So, it was, but it is so crazy. Like, are you going to adapt or are you going to die? And I know we use that saying quite a bit in our industry, but it's so true. Like, are you going to do this, or are you in an area that maybe it's just not really prevalent? So how are you going to go about doing it? And then obviously we've a lot of other portions that go into a lot of other feelings and a little bit facts that go into how someone feels about this. So let's go straight into the media mix portion of it. So for EV brands, do they differ from auto ads or any like the regular ICE ads?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're going to have to shift a little bit too. Change is scary. Nobody really loves change unless you're crazy. But I think that the media mix for EV ads and brands in particular, they're going to have to focus more on targeting and addressability, regardless of channel, like I said. So having a solid media mix where you're targeting the right consumer with the right message at the right time, at the platform that your consumers are actually at, is not a new phenomenon by any means. So I feel like in that sense, there's not a lot of change there. But right now, it's going to be ever important as loyalty continues to decline for these traditional ICE or gas vehicles. So as of Q2 of 2023, we're seeing loyalty for gasoline vehicles continue to decline. And right now they're coming in below 90% for the 11th quarter in a row, which is unprecedented. So, which is good and bad. This downturn really opens up a new pipeline for retail advertisers to take advantage of these ICE defectors, as we'll call them, since they're not loyal anymore. But keeping in mind that they'll really have to find creative ways to address the affordability, the overall consumer reaction. I mean, competition for lot space, shift in marketing budgets, all of these different kind of elephants in the room that are going to need to be tackled, but there's a lot of opportunity to do so.
And I love everything about that, how you just explained everything. I saw something from Steve Greenfield recently that he was stating how that EVs have went up, I believe it was 50% year over year. Now, when you say 50%, people are like, oh my gosh, that's so much. I think it's like 9% of the market share right now. But to go 50% over year, that's quite significant to say, like that's a big jump. So yeah, I mean, for the most part, I know like I remember my sedan I used to have, and yes, I do. I don't have a sedan anymore, but I had everyone's getting trucks. I was like, I love my sedan. I love the gas mileage on it. And then I get
Yeah.
an SUV truck now. I'm like, it's getting better, and it is ICE, but it's getting better gas mileage than my sedan used to have, which is kind of crazy. And I've got my mother in law is like, well, should I go? And she's like 86, 87, and she's like, should I go to an EV? We're like, okay, let's talk this through because I don't think you quite understand. But she puts like 30,000 miles on a car each year. And obviously, living in Chicago,
Mm.
gas is not cheap. Yeah, it's went down, but when you're still spending significant money to fill your car and doing a lot, and we're like, okay, let's run through this real quickly and understand, like, once again, doing those discovery questions to understand, is this really a good fit for her? If it is, she's obviously going to save a lot of money on gas.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the education piece is going to be so important in this entire shift, right? Like to your mother-in-law, she doesn't know those different factors. Like you're going to have to take all of those things and weigh the pros and cons in order to make that switch.
Amen. And so obviously there's a lot of advantages to EVs. I mean, you know this, I know this. Anyone that's is spent half a second with EVs is like, hey, yeah, there's definitely some pros to them. How can brands effectively highlight the technology, the performance, and honestly sustainability in their ads?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, going back to the education piece, like education differentiation is going to be the two main keys. So there's going to have to be huge emphasis just placed on highlighting those different product features so the consumer knows what they're going to get and the positives, but like again, addressing those concerns about range anxiety, affordability, like charging infrastructure, all of those things that have to be taken into account when you're deciding if an EV is right for you at that time. So, I mean, if brands start taking these steps right out of the gate, like this should lead to a more informed consumer overall and just help combat all of the unknowns when these shoppers are considering an EV.
It's so true to like go through and think, okay, I'm looking at a VV, and but then the education parts we've talked about, and I know we'll talk about it some more here, is so key to know, is this person even a good fit for it? I mean, I at this point I think everyone has seen the Tesla. I know it's a Rivian that the guy took. Maybe it was Tesla, whatever it was, and he took it up into the mountains and then got stuck. I was like, well, first off, why would you take a freaking pogo stick up in the mountain? Like, what? Not that EVs are pogo stick,
No.
but do some discovery question to figure out, okay, what is your purpose of this? What do you normally do? If you find the person is like going off roading, they're going up, doing everything in the outdoors, probably not a good fit for you. But you're going to go and
Yeah,
blame
maybe
the,
get a
yeah,
Jeep.
call me crazy, but get a Jeep. But it's so crazy when you hear stuff like that. Or it's the same thing you would do with ICE to say, hey, Brooke, I see you're interested in a coupe. Then you find out later on that, hey, she's going to be, once again, towing stuff. Maybe she's got a kid on the way, or whatever it may be. Is a coupe really the best fit? Unless it's a second or third vehicle, why the hell are you getting a coupe? Like that's not a good, it's not a
Yeah,
good option for you right now. And honestly, as a consumer,
totally.
is going to be like, oh, well, thank you. You're not just trying to shove EVs down my throat. You're not trying to shove the latest lease special down my throat. Like you're actually taking the time to understand me and my why and why this would work for me, or maybe it won't. And then when they are ready for it, guess who they're coming back to because you took care of them.
Yeah, and you're upfront, you're honest about all those features and addressing all of the potential. I'll say it again, like the elephants in the room.
Yeah, it's so true. And this is God, a couple years more than that. It's probably like 4 or 5 years ago at this point. And I was talking, maybe 3 years ago, I was talking to a friend. It's not in the auto industry, and they just started throwing out quote unquote stats. And I just go, where are you getting this information? Like maybe ask someone that's in the
Yeah,
industry. And it was just full of unsubstantiated claims. And I go, let me walk you back here a little bit. What is it you currently have? And we walk through everything. I go, if you're looking for X, Y, and Z, you can do this. But unfortunately, the internet right now is so full of misinformation or slanted information. I know that never happens in our society ever, but
Never.
it is crazy how much you got to do that.
Never.
Never.
Yeah.
It's nuts. So
So yeah, I think that part too, it's like, where are you getting these stats? Is it from a credible source? Like, I think we do a really good job at actually analyzing the market and having different people on our team, like data analysts, scientists, like not just making these claims based on feeling. Like, these are hardcore facts that we are reporting back, and
no,
hopefully the
it's
brands are
so
taking
true.
these as well and reporting back to their consumers.
I 100% agree. So as we move to like, I'll say evaluate the impact of our advertising and is it good, is it not? What performance tracking should be used? And then are there new KPIs that maybe we should be looking at when we're dealing with EVs?
Yeah, so I mean, being able to measure actual vehicle sales and buy through rates is always what we call the gold standard. I mean, like, what's the point of advertising if you can't tie that back to the end goal? In this case, selling cars, right? Um, I mean, this is going to be more important than ever as everyone tries to navigate this new landscape with EVs, right? So for new KPIs, I mean, I can't speak to what people are tracking, but I'll say, if I was a dealer, if I was an advertiser, if I was somebody in the retail space actually running media, I would want to go a step deeper and do my due diligence and understand more about the people who are purchasing after they're being exposed to campaigns. So more than just like, okay, did this person buy this vehicle? It's like, who is this person? Like, is this an additive purchase to their garage? Like, what is their life stage right now? And then taking that information and either adjusting your target audience and message and replicating that success. So I think in terms of KPIs, just understanding and going a step further than just, okay, did it sell a car? It's like, who is this person? Like, where are more of these people? What can I do to target these people more effectively so I can sell more cars?
Amen. It's nuts. I was talking to a friend maybe a month ago or something like that, and we are just talking how she was going through and with her clients would go through and say, "Hey, wait, you're big on EV, you're not big on EV. Oh, you want to learn more about it? Okay, let's talk about that." And they were actually going through and looking at the geolocations of every charger around the store or within 60 miles of them, and then on top of that they would go through and pull a list of any owners or people that might be coming out of lead. I mean, there's doing so many different things to say, okay, we're doing really well here. Maybe we can add a little bit more here. I mean, I have a store that they're like always number one in their electric vehicle. And it's not just the part of like, hey, let's get some ads out there. I mean, they make sure that they actually know their stuff. Like they're going to everything electric that the city provides. They're making sure that it's not just one specialist. I mean, that's great. You have one. What happens if that person's off? Like if that person leaves you, like what are you going to do
Yeah.
then? Go and ask
Mm-hmm.
your employees, say, hey, would you ever be gonna buy an EV? And if they say no, figure out why. Because there's a reason behind that. And
Mm-hmm.
knowing, okay, from there, we're gonna get that same questions. And a lot of people are they're so afraid because like, oh, we've been selling ICE vehicles forever. So we know everything about them. But with the EV, I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what the answer. I'm so afraid that the customer's gonna ask because EV clientele is a way, way different than regular ICE vehicles. So having that
Mm-hmm.
conversation with your employees to do that. So and then obviously in the advertising portion as well is look into it. I mean, there's so many things you can do with it. So I want to take this a little bit further here. Is that I know that with you're doing awesome at Polk. The first time I met you, I was like, gosh, she's incredible. So
Thank you.
thank you,
Appreciate that. Same to
thank you very
you.
much. Uh, so being with your background with Polk and having all this data at your fingertips, how can retailers adapt their ad strategy to best cater to EV owners? We kind of like led up to this. I'm curious how you guys do this and how you would.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we work with large dealer groups and agencies, vendors. We don't necessarily consult on the strategy, but we do provide the data so they can go and make those informed decisions, right? So we see a lot of different, I guess, execution types. But one thing that we do see a lot with the clients that we work with is having them understand their first party data. I mean, knowing who their target audience is, and then, of course, measuring the impact of that ads. And then to build on that, just making sure that their overall strategy, which is their responsibility, is as diversified as this new market or current market with EVs is about to be and is right now. those are the main kind of crucial things that I think they should adapt their ad strategies to. Uh, we're seeing that EV and gas share of the market is forecasted to converge in 2028, which is, I mean, 5 years out, which is crazy to say the
I
least.
know.
But between now and then, there's a lot that you can do, right? Like we have 5 years, so retail advertisers should be preparing and adapting those strategies to align with that convergence. And this, it goes beyond just EVs, right? I mean, traditional gasoline vehicles will still be in production during this time. So not saying that they should be just retiring all those efforts on selling gas vehicles, but instead making sure that they're being responsible and applying those similar tactics that we can apply to EVs to ICE shoppers as well. So knowing what offer and message is needed for those different kind of customer types, and then knowing that this applies to all fuel types. It's going to be a different strategy for ICE versus EV, but there's a lot that you can take from both and apply while we kind of navigate these uncharted waters together.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we go back to one of the statements made earlier about there's just a lot of misinformation out there. And anyone that's like looking
Totally.
at this, I just go, okay, first off, let's just go with the basics. Do you have a charger, which is a charge point, at your dealership? Well, yeah, we do. Great. Google wants you then to have a profile for that. You should have a listing for that. So you can have your sales, parts, service. But if you've got a charger, you should have a charge point listing, like, and then optimize it from there. Because if you don't, what I have seen is that there are certain OEMs that are now trying to grab that and take it from the dealership. So if
Mm,
nothing else, like, make sure that you go and claim that. The other thing is, if you go and search anything about EVs, or whether it's PEV or whatever, maybe any type of EV, you're seeing a lot of obviously negative stuff out there, but there's not a lot. But
mm-hmm,
that being said, there's just not a lot of information. So what do you I mean? If I have a dealership that is wanting to go gung ho on it, man, I am saying you get so much social out there. You start taking videos, post them on YouTube, because most of the stuff out there is negative and there's not a lot of it. So getting out there and
mm-hmm.
being the authoritative authoritative authority. Yeah, I just use that word twice, but
I like that
it's
authoritative authority.
it's one of those days, as we were talking beforehand. But be the authority on the matter, like, be the subject matter
Yeah.
expert on that, so then people know, oh, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about this. I want to go to ABC Motors. It's yeah, I just yes, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, and the shift is coming. Like position yourself where you can.
Amen.
Like be that dealership who is the expert on EVs. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah, yes. So we're talking about expertise and being the subject matter expert, and that kind of leads into something we've talked about a little bit here. But what do salespeople need to know to discuss EVs versus the gas ICE vehicles?
Yeah, so salespeople, I mean, leading back to education, like they need to be the subject matter experts so they can accurately tell their clients information about the EVs and decide if, okay, is this EV right for this person? So having a knowledgeable sales team is going to be so important when people are coming in and asking about EVs. And I mean, it's going to be a shift in learning, and there's going to be a lot of responsibility placed on the dealerships as a whole and the salespeople just to get up to speed with that. But I mean, we already know so much about all of these ICE vehicles and models. It's pretty similar. It's a different way of thinking, different features, different benefits, different pros, different cons, but just education.
Yes, that is the biggest thing. And we go back to when there were diesel vehicles first got introduced. Like, people freaked out about it. Like, it's the worst thing ever. It's
Yeah.
never going to stick. And I was like, have you checked lately? I think it just did. So I mean, there's just so. I mean, we went from horse and buggy to an actual vehicle. So it's gonna, all this stuff is it's a migration into something, a new offering. Do diesel vehicles still exist?
Hmm.
Yeah. And are they still? Yeah, of course they are. Like, of course they are. I mean, last I checked at the gas station, they still have diesel there. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So really just taking that and saying, okay, what else can I do with this? And I'm sure when diesel first came out, that people are not only freaked out, but they're like, I don't want to sell it. I don't want. In fact, I'm not think I know that the dealerships don't want to sell it. So let's look ahead in the future here. Get your crystal ball here for a hot second, and I want to know,
Okay.
when's the big tipping point for EVs?
Yes. And I love this question just because it's the when, not the if. It's kind of the facts, not feelings take. But I'll just take you through a timeline to get a better sense of the whole tipping point and what that looks like. So buckle up. So in 2020, we had 24 available EV models on the market. In 2026, there will be 213 different EV models available. So if you don't want to do the math, that's about 189 EV models that will be launched within a short 6-year period. And this isn't a forecast. These are models that are slated for production. So they're coming, they're on their way. It's going to happen. So 2026 is also when EVs will surpass the number of traditional gasoline vehicles on the market, which will be nearing about 200 at that time. Um, Continuing on, so 2027 to 2028, model availability by propulsion system design will peak at around 650 models, which will be the technical tipping point, right? So we have a term that we call peak model complexity, just due to the widespread availability of all retail models. So regardless of fuel type, that's ICE, that's FEV, that's EV, that's diesel, that's whatever kind of model that's available for sale. So this means that there will be about 650 different vehicle models for consumers to choose from during that time, which is wild.
That's a lot.
So going even further, by 2030, there will be 315 different EV models on the market, which is a 12x model growth over the decade just for EVs. And that was a really long-winded answer, but just to answer your question, to circle this, close it out, mark your calendars for around 2027 to 2028. And that's going to be the tipping point just due to that peak model complexity of around 650 available vehicles on the market.
Those are a lot of stats just throw down there. And once again, backing things up by stats is so key, because we can all and we all do this. We're all guilty of falling into the feelings portion of it. I hate it. It's not going to work. Oh, anytime something happens, it's not going to work. And see, I told you so. Remember talking with a couple of my clients, and we're just saying how, EVs are there, and they're, these OEMs are saying, hey, we're going to produce well, slow down. Yes, they are. But in so many people's mind, it's, oh, we're never going to have an ICE vehicle ever again. Okay. That's not what the OEMs are saying.
No.
I
don't think that's what anybody's saying.
But I hear that so often that I'm like, no, it's only like, they're going to make sure if you have a Hyundai Tucson, that the Tucson is going to be an EV. Like, that's what we're talking about. But so much misconception around the fact that, oh, they're just going to completely get rid of them. Well, once again, going back to diesel, as gasoline and diesel put together, is they didn't get rid of them. Like, that's ICE vehicles are still, like, gasoline was still there. Like, slow down. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
Totally. Yeah. Everything's going to be okay. It's going to be a crazy time when there's 650 different models on the market, but everybody's going to be okay. There's going to be a lot to choose from, and we'll move forward.
Options are good. So let's shift gears just a little bit here. How will this transition affect the auto parts and accessory retailers?
Yeah, I mean, simply put, there's going to be an impact, right? So suppliers will need to shift and expand, or just risk becoming obsolete. There's going to need to be some changes to keep that afloat, but that's not something that we are forecasting or have stats on today, but just from, you can put 1 and 2 together.
Well, yeah, we've talked about this a few times, but if you are at a dealership and you're a new car dealership and you're worried about that, my first question to you is, great, when the customer buys an EV from you, they're going to probably want to charge at their house, last I checked. So are you outsourcing that, or are you bringing someone on board or training your staff right now to be certified in this? They can go put in the charging station at their house. Like, I mean, that's just something.
There's opportunities.
Yeah. Like, yes, is there, and we'll get this next, going right to the next question about, are retailers bracing for the drop in service related business? And I'll let you run with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we are seeing an increase in short-term business just across the market, just due to average vehicle age right now, which is around 12 years old, and just the American fleet aging in general, right? But I mean, it's a little too early to tell. And, I'm not a retailer myself, so I can't speak to how or if they are bracing themselves for the future. But I think there's reason to brace for it to a sense. But at the same time, I mean, EVs have to go in for service too. It's not just a one and done kind of thing. Here's the EV for the rest of your life. Like, there's going to be pivots. It's going to look different, but yeah.
And even to that point, like I was reading a thing this morning on, I think it was the Rivian. I want to say it was, no, it was Lucid. And the heated seats were burning. I don't know if you saw this, but they were actually burning and they melted a car seat. And so
Ooh.
not that I'm trying to go all dark on this. The point of this is that when you do these over the air updates, other things can break. So at some point, as we get
Yes.
through this, is that they're going to need to bring the car back in because, oh, this just broke. This is all new. Like it's newer to most people. So when those things do happen, or hey, heaven forbid they actually opt out of all the over the air updates, they're still going to have to come back into the store, and then you guys can have at them. So it's
Yeah.
just, once again, what is your plan? Or, when I look at this and say, what is your plan? Maybe you're a OEM that, I think it's Toyota, that doesn't, they have the hybrids, but no EV. Okay, then yeah, you don't have to worry about that. Like, okay, great, fantastic. But if you are an EV dealer, what are you doing now to make sure you're future proofing everything? So I'll take it
Hmm.
one step further on the maintenance portion of it. And so we know there's a little bit lower maintenance. How can EV brands creatively use advertising to establish the ongoing relationships with loyalty and with their customers and customer loyalty in general?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of different ways that they can do this, but I mean, something that we help our clients with is really developing and integrating different audiences so they can start one getting those customers into their dealerships and doing business with them, and then also creating loyalty in that sense too. So what we've done in the past year or so is taken pretty proactive measures and created 150 different EV specific audience segments to help those advertisers lead EV owners and shoppers closer to purchase. So whether there is somebody who wants to target people who are just kind of broadly in market for an EV, owners of EV, or get super granular and target people by specific EV make or model, reach people based on purchase type. I know I've talked about like additive purchases quite a bit so far, but is this an additive purchase to their current vehicle? Is this their first purchase EV? I'm not going to list them all since there's like 150 different ones that we have available, but there's a whole suite of audiences in different ways that, I mean, we can help, but the other way is really taking advantage of your first party data, right? Like
Amen.
take a look at it, like make sure it's clean, make sure it's standardized, make sure you're understanding what your customers are doing, and take all of that, like that data is yours, like use it to your advantage, make sure it's looking good, and run with it.
And understand that first party data, to your point, it is yours. And how many times, I've
Hmm.
lost count the number of times we discussed this, but knowing that with that, how many other individuals want to claim it as their own when in fact that is yours. And so yeah, the CRM's a
Yeah.
mess. So if you're we go back to how people are targeted. Well, if you look at Amazon knows what I'm going to buy before I ever freaking buy it. Like I'm getting stuff like, oh yeah, yeah, I definitely that. Same with like Target. I mean, you look at these companies that are doing such a phenomenal job with this, is that they're not seeing the standardized BS out to the consumer, being like, oh, you know what, we haven't seen you in 12 years, so let's target you with something we just feel like no, like stop, be targeted with it.
Hmm.
And to your point of, hey, look at it and say, do they have two vehicles in the garage right now? Okay, do they have multiple vehicles in the car? They good chance they could be in a market for an EV. So really looking at that, I mean, another one is like, hey, well, they're driving a truck, Brooke, a pickup truck, so therefore they're not going to like an EV. No, that's not true at all. Like, no, that truck will now
Not
help them
true.
on the
Yeah.
on the outdoor stuff. Like you can haul your boat, you can do whatever, go up the mountains and go off roading. But this mindset of like, well, because they have X, they're not going to like Y. Well, it's not exactly 100% science that way, but
Yeah,
thanks
and
for
it's
playing.
it's an assumption, and you don't know until you actually take a look at your data and you can append different information to that, so you can understand your customer and then resonate with them.
Amen.
Totally
Yeah.
agree.
All right. So, do you see EV owners having unique shopping habits?
Yes. So aside from EVs mainly being that additive purchase, so we're also seeing that acquiring a FEV vehicle is a really significant step into purchasing an EV. I haven't mentioned Tesla at all so far, which is kind of shocking, but here it comes. So another not so surprising tidbit to share is that 9 out of 10 return to market Tesla households that purchase another EV purchase another Tesla. So this is the only brand that this is the case for right now. So I would say a unique shopping habit for Tesla owners specifically is that they are extremely loyal. And I'm sure there's some people listening to this right now saying, like, I don't want to hear about Tesla because I want to focus on my brand and my EVs, which totally get. But my kind of point here is that I think it's going to be extremely interesting to see how overall loyalty and just overall shopping behaviors for non Tesla EV brands play out as we start to collect more data, get closer to that peak model complexity period of time.
Yes, and with that, I'll add on to that a little bit is that there may, like you said, there may be people like, I'm tired of hearing about Tesla. I don't want to hear about Elon. I'm tired. I have very harsh feelings toward whatever it may be. There's a reason why Tesla has done so well and why everybody else is trying to catch up to them. While OEMs are saying, you know what, you're charging, we want to be just like you. And now we're going to integrate with that. Like there's so much about what Tesla is doing. Does Tesla have faults? 100% they do. Yes, just like any OEM, they have massive faults. Just like I said, any of them. But knowing that, hey, is the customer looking for this or is it this or this or this? And just once again, going to understand what the consumer wants. But I mean, there's been so many things they've done so seamlessly and made that journey so easy for the consumer is why they keep coming back. I mean, yes, the range anxiety, I think is probably for me talking to people, that seems to be the biggest reason. Like, oh, I can't use any other charger. Well, you actually can, but that Tesla's just done such a phenomenal job to know, hey, you're getting the next charging station is 2 hours away, or the next you can pull off here and get charged. I mean, and that it's just you're done on supercharging. You're done so quickly, like it's way quick. That's another one that I think over the not think but over
Mm-hmm.
the time that people have put it that it's going to take me all night to charge my car. That's not no not exactly. Really, like it's not very long at
Yeah,
all.
not exactly, but
Not exactly. But thanks for playing.
but yeah, but I mean, yeah, exactly. But I think like as we start to collect more data on the non-Tesla brands and we start to see the prominence of all of these different models come into market, like there's potential for these brands to be as loyal as Tesla. Like there's an opportunity with all of those different models available.
I agree. So we have millennials and Gen Z that apparently get blamed for everything. Now it's like Gen X, Gen Y, Gen whatever they are, and they get blamed a lot for stuff. But that being said, they're the majority. Like when you look at statistically how many people are buying cars, it's millennials. So and now you got G and Gen Z coming up here. So with that, they're becoming a massive, massive chunk of the EV market. Once again, let's go back to ads here. Should ads be tailored differently to them?
Yeah, I mean, ads should be tailored differently for everybody. So, I mean, by consumer buying profile, you're wanting to target people who are in market for specific eligibility reasons, and that should be taken into heavy consideration, whether that is millennials or Gen Zs or boomers or Gen X, Gen whatever, the new, what is the new one? Alpha, I
Yeah,
think?
alpha. Yep.
Gen
Yep.
Alpha? Yeah. They're not buying cars yet, but once we get to that place, I mean, ads should be tailored towards them too. But branding is completely left to the creative agencies out there. Like what we do is focus on helping these agencies understand those buyer profiles so then they can make decisions on how to go to market, how they're targeting those consumers with their behaviors and instead of just the message.
Yes.
So powering that information behind it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've joked on the show multiple times when it comes to TikTok. I was like, wait over. It's not my generation. Like, it's a rough time like understanding it. But I pay people to make the content look awesome, so it will look awesome on TikTok. But if not that I'm saying I'm pushing TikTok on dealerships. I'm just saying if you know where your audience is and they're using TikTok to find their news versus going online, probably should be on TikTok. And knowing that if I'm at
Probably.
Facebook, while I get a lot of a great ROI statistically for on auto dealerships, that's great, but you should be in other spots as well because maybe your audience is on Instagram. Maybe your audience is, we're seeing, traffic decrease. You're seeing in-store traffic decrease. Well, let's also walk through that. Yes, a part of that is just, we have a lot going on in the world right now. So that's number one. Number two
Mm-hmm.
is that, okay, great. What about all the other technology out there? I was looking at a friend's account and looking at, I go, do you understand that one of the biggest ways people are coming to your store right now over the last X time, which was kind of weird, but I go, they're going and using Google Lens, they're scanning something, and that's how they're getting to you. So if you're looking at, is my advertising working? What are you doing on that? If I know that and I'm looking at the data on this, man, look at that. What about, obviously we all know I have a bit of a shoe problem. If I'm looking at shoes, while ago, the Nike app, yeah, but all the Google shopping is massive. I can click right from there
Yeah.
and never go to your website. So are you taking advantage of that? I mean, there's so many different ways you can look at it and say, is this working and how can I improve it? And that's a big one.
Yeah. Is this working? How can I improve it? Who are these people? How can I reach more of them on the right platform?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for dealerships, what changes can be catered to the growing EV market?
Yeah. So, I mean, knowing about your customer base as much as possible. I will say that until I'm blue in the face, but having measurement and attribution services in place to calculate that true ROI, like making sure that you're fully understanding where your sales are coming from and being responsible for that. But educating those sales teams, like aligning yourselves with the right vendors in the right place that are prepared to help you through this shift. So really kind of look internally, make sure you're ready for it, educate yourself and go from there.
Amen. Any other final thoughts on how EVs advertising should differ from traditional auto ads?
Yeah, I mean, I think the three biggest takeaways that people should kind of take home and how we think retailers should be approaching EV advertising, just based on everything we've covered so far, is three things. So education, differentiation within the market, and then overall communication.
Amen. At this point, I mean, yes, you can go back and watch the whole thing, and when we encourage you to watch this whole thing, but right there is like that is so key right there. I mean, the education, the communication, they're just absolutely awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Maddie, we are at that time. We're gonna jump in the lightning round with Maddie Morgan. So first and
Oh boy.
foremost, here, get a drink. We're gonna be okay. Well, right below me, I've got her personalized link here. But for those that are listening, how can they find you? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, my link is right there as well. I think my email's on there, but feel free to reach out at any time if you just want to talk through things in the market. If you want to know more about Polk Automotive Solutions as a whole, I'd be happy to have a conversation. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, and you'll probably see her at a conference at some point as well. So go talk with
Yes,
her.
that too. I'll be around.
All right, the name of the
Good
show
point.
is Facts Not Feelings. How do you differentiate? Well, it can be personal or it can be in your professional life. But how do you distinguish facts from feelings?
Yeah, so facts are fact based, right? So that's something you can point to based on statistics, right? Facts are facts. Feelings are kind of emotionally driven, whether that's like fear based or, I mean, strict feeling based. So that's the difference of facts, not feelings.
Amen. I obviously am a big fan of that, so I agree with that 100%.
Love it.
All right, what is something that maybe a lot of people wouldn't know about you?
Yeah, so I have a degree in design management, funny enough. So I'm a devout follower of the design thinking method, which is really solution based, which is kind of different to the traditional like problem based and is more user centric. So making sure I understand the person, the situation as a whole versus focusing on the problem at hand, which is something I've really taken into my professional and personal career.
That's a good thing to take. I'm going to just say amen. Like that, to be able to, one, didn't know that about you until we filmed this. That's really, really cool. So let's go with, if you could have lunch with one person, who is it going to be?
Yes. So I was thinking about this and I was like, who would I actually want to have lunch with that isn't like a historical figure really? But I've been doing some reading lately and Franz Kafka is such an interesting guy. I think he's very interesting from like a philosophy perspective, but just a kind of a misunderstood guy. So I think this month I would have lunch with Franz Kafka.
I can tell you that's the first time we've had that answer on Facts Not Feelings. So I applaud that. It's not the normal thing that I normally get. I love
Probably
it.
not.
Okay, that's good though. All right, so we got to know is if you could have one superpower, what's it going to be?
To fly. I would love to fly. Like you've had those flying dreams where it's just like the best feeling in the world. That's what I would love to fly. That'd be my superpower. Over being invisible or any of those other things, I'd fly.
I that's and I agree. Like I always want to go skydiving. I can't now, but I always wanted to go. I'm like, I just love flying. So I'm not on here, but have you ever been skydiving?
Yeah, I've gone 3 times.
Oh,
So
God.
that too, that definitely plays into it. And it's just it's a rush. So it's fun.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, Maddie, thank you so much for being a part of the show and contributing and just educating everyone on a very hot topic to say the least. So super, super excited, like I said, just to have you on. So thank you so much for being here. And with that, everyone, you know the drill at this point. Find a way to serve today. Find a way to help your fellow and your neighbor, your coworker, where it may be, whether that is opening a car door for someone or if it is simply just a kind smile. Find a way to serve today. And with that, everyone, we will see everybody next week.